Today on Homeworthy, we're in Dallas, Texas, featuring the home of interior designer and antique dealer Lindley Arthur. Lindley and her family live in a beautifully renovated University Park home with traditional touches and pops of pattern and color. The home is bright and airy and features a stunning art collection, as well as a lounge that is perfect for enjoying a cocktail. Enjoy! You're watching Homeworthy, where we believe every home has a story. Before today's episode, click the join button below to support all of the storytelling we do on this channel. Our growing community of members help to directly fund more videos so we can capture these extraordinary homes from around the world. So join today to receive early and exclusive access to new Homeworthy videos.
Hey Homeworthy, I'm Lindley. Welcome to my home in Dallas. Come on in and I'll show you around. Hi, I'm Lindley Arthur and we are at my home in Dallas, Texas. I am the owner of Lindley Arthur Antiques and Interiors. It's a residential firm here in Dallas, and I'm also an antique dealer. I live in this house with my husband Stroud and our two teenage boys, Leighton, who just graduated from high school, and Benton, who is a sophomore, and our dog, English setter Rory. We purchased this house in 2001. And it was on the market, and we just fell in love with the Southern architecture. It had a great floor plan and great bones, but we really wanted to make it our own, so we did a complete cosmetic remodel in the fall of 21 and moved in right around the holidays. So I'm definitely a traditionalist. I like to stay away from trends, and I'm also, because I have a background in antiques, I have a lot of antiques throughout my home that I've collected on my different buying trips to Atlanta, to Round Top. So you'll see lots of antiques throughout my house. That's a big part of my design and my design work as well. My look is also, I would describe it as like very layered, pops of color, but also just soothing at the same time. So welcome to my entryway. This is the first thing you see when you walk in the house. It is a large entryway, double story, very open and airy. So I really wanted to kind of give this space a little bit of a warmth to it, and so that it didn't feel so cavernous. So the very first starting off point to this space was this Henry Finkelstein painting. This is an artist that I love and had been kind of stalking his work for a while. He has amazing use of color and does a lot of plein air landscapes that he paints in Europe and in the Northeast. And so when we bought this home in 21, he was having a show at a local gallery here in Dallas called Valley House. And so I got there the very first day it opened and purchased this painting. And this was really the starting point for all the colors in the house. I loved the peaches and the greens and blues. I loved chartreuse is like my favorite color, so it had a little bit of that in the tree. And so this was the first thing we purchased, and it helped us kind of dictate the design for the rest of the house. I also purchased this in Atlanta. One of my favorite places to visit is the Scott's Antique Market. And I loved this because it had a casual feel. It was a bleached oak English console, and I loved like the neoclassical elements of the legs, and it was just the right size for this wall. And I also loved that I felt like it could really display my collections. I'm like a addicted collector, and this displays two of my collections that I have throughout the house. One of them is the Chinese sort of lacquerware, and I have this all over my home, but I like collections to be grouped together for impact, and so I was able to sort of take this surface and group a bunch of the pieces I had collected over the years. And then the other thing that this console is able to display is my antique collection of blue and white Chinese pottery. There's a lot of reproductions on the market now, and they look great, but I'm a purist just because of my background, and so these are actually old 19th century vases and temple jars that I've bought throughout the years on my antique hunts. The other thing that I wanted to kind of show you guys is this wall going up the stairs. So I don't know why, but I love parrots. And so I had found these parrot prints at an auction in Nashville and just loved them. And so wanted to kind of fill this wall with a collection of those, and then also pull my blue and white over to this side. And so it kind of felt cohesive with the collection over here on the console. And then I did these fun sconces from Urban Electric with chartreuse shades just to give it like a little bit more of a modern feel, so everything didn't feel so old, and they are a little more contemporary, and I think they work really well. And I chose the chartreuse shades just because, like I said, that's like my very favorite color, and I just consider it to be a fun neutral. Okay, so this is a piece that I purchased at the Dallas Art Fair, which is probably one of my favorite annual events here in Dallas. And the artist's name is Shelley Reed. I purchased it from the Sears Payton Gallery in New York that comes to the fair. And what I love about this is Shelley takes inspiration from old paintings from like the Renaissance, and she'll pull just one element out of the painting and do it and amidst this like margin of white. And so it kind of takes on a contemporary feel. I just loved it, and you know, I think that's so important when you buy art, is to feel some sort of a connection to it. And so it's a hummingbird, and we named our house the Hummingbird House after this. So I'm in the process of branding everything for our house and doing matchbooks, and you know, little towels. Haven't gotten to finish it yet, but I think it's fun for your house to have a name and sort of an identity. So that's where we started with this one. This stool is obviously an antique. I think I purchased it at Scott's in Atlanta. And I just liked the architectural older element, you know, feel of it under this more contemporary painting. And then again, just popped a little bit of chartreuse on it for fun, and just, again, I just can't get enough chartreuse. So the lantern in my entry kind of has an interesting story. I really wanted something special, and I used to, in our former house, go on walks in the morning. And there was this house I walked by every day that had this gorgeous English antique lantern on a post. And I would walk by it every day and just think about it, and it just inspired me so much to create this lantern in our entry. So I had this actually custom made by this wonderful brass craftsman here in Dallas, and he was able to replicate that lantern that I loved so much on the walks into this larger chandelier in our entry. So I think to make this space feel a little bit more warm, I think adding the antiques is so important. The warmer wood of the console, layering some fabrics. So like, for example, like instead of just doing a plain white shade on these buffet lamps, we did it in a printed small print linen that wouldn't fight with the painting. The other thing was just the floor covering I thought was really important. This is a antique ushak that I found that, again, sort of pulled in those colors that I like, those rosy pinks and chartreuses. And it's just such a beautiful thing to welcome you right when you walk into the house, because it adds texture and color and keeps things from feeling too cavernous. So the dining room is a big space in this house, and it's very formal. It's right off the entry, and so I really wanted it to be a space that I just thought was really pretty. And of course, I've always wanted to do Gracie wallpaper, and this was the perfect opportunity. So that was one of the first things we selected for the house, was this Gracie wallpaper. I worked with Andrew in the showroom in Dallas here, who was amazing. And it's really hard to choose because everything is so beautiful, but I decided I wanted more of a silhouette, and so it's a little bit more contemporary. And when I say silhouette, what I mean is there's not like tons of coloration in the paper. It's a colored ground and then just like a creamy white with the scene. So I think it turned out really well. I also think, as much as I love the brightly colored Gracie, I felt like this was an investment that I wouldn't get tired of. And so I'm really happy with how it turned out. But on that note, you know, Gracie's very traditional and very formal. I didn't want this space to feel too formal. So that's why I selected this Abaca rug from Patterson Flynn, and it's like a little more beachy, a little more casual. And I think it really just like is a nice contrast to the formality and dressiness of the Gracie, but it still gives sort of an unexpected pop. So we custom colored the sort of greeny color in here to sort of match the ground of the Gracie. And then I had this furniture from my old house. This table, I actually was the very first antique I ever purchased. My husband and I were newlyweds, 27 years old, and went to Atlanta and found this in an antique mall. I think it was like $1,000. And I mean, I don't think I'll ever get rid of it. I love the banded top, and it's just, my father-in-law held it back to Dallas in his pickup truck for us, and it's just special to us. So we'll keep it, probably always. The other thing, so a couple other things about this room. When we bought this house, their fireplace was this like very large, overscaled white wood fireplace, and I felt like it was too big for the room. And so I worked with a marble company here in Dallas to create this marble mantle, and it just is a better scale for the room, and I also like the way it looks against the Gracie. It has a ton of fun movement in the marble and in the stone. And then finally, something else interesting to kind of talk about in here is this painting. Another thing I purchased from Valley House in Dallas. This is an artist named Otis Hubband. He's actually I want to say he's in his 80s, and he lives in Houston. And he paints these really interesting contemporary figural pieces. And I know people sometimes don't want to layer art over, hand-painted scenic wallpaper, but I actually love the way that looks. And I like the fact that it was, something really contemporary against something much more traditional. In the dining room, this is, again, a directoire buffet that I purchased at Scott's Antique Market in Atlanta. It's moved with me from 3 houses, and I'll probably have it forever. And it's very traditional, so I wanted to do something a little more contemporary with the lighting. And these are handmade pottery lamps by a Dallas artist named Paul Schneider. And he's got a great workshop in the design district where you can choose your lamp silhouette and then also choose your glaze. You can do a solid glaze, but he also has some more fun glazes like this one. And peach is another one of my very favorite colors, and I liked the way it looked against this sort of celadon blue green ground of the Gracie, and so that's why I selected the peach. These are dahlias, which are some of my favorites, and they're, again, peach because I love it. And this wonderful company in Dallas called Park Cities Petals is kind of my go-to for floral, and they were able to do these for y'all to come over and tour the house. But dahlias are my favorite. I really love peonies. Those are probably the two that I go to the most. So I actually went to college for public relations and worked in PR for about 10 years for some major companies here in Dallas. And during that time, my husband and I had purchased our first house, which was a cute little ranch house. And I didn't have a budget to hire a decorator. And so my mom and I started going to Round Top, which is this really amazing antique show down in Central Texas. And I just started to purchase things there and for my home, and just enjoyed the trip every year with her. And I think, about the time my second son was born, I had come home from work, and I was kind of needed something for myself. I was feeling a little lonely and home all the time, and just missed that work interaction with others, but didn't have time to take on a full-time job. And so I was always in my free time when the boys were at Mother's Day out, I would go wander through a little antique shop on Lover's Lane here in Dallas. And I just asked them one day when I was in there if they had any spaces for lease, and they did. And so I've been at that antique shop ever since. And that is sort of how my design career started, is people would come into the antique shop, they would like what they saw, they would ask if I could design their home, and it just sort of grew organically from there. Now I'll take you over to our adult lounge. Follow me. So we call this space our adult lounge, and the reason being is when we bought this house, it didn't have a bar, and my husband and I are big tequila soda drinkers, so that was not going to work. And so we needed to have a place where we could have a drink and a cocktail and just kind of unwind from the end of the day. So when we bought this house, this was originally a really dark paneled room. It was set up like this. I believe it had a TV as well, but it was set up as a second living area. And this space right here was all bookshelves as well. And like I said, our house didn't have a bar, and that wasn't going to work. And so my husband actually had the idea to take the bookshelves off from this side of the room and make this our bar. And so now this room is really our place that we come and we have a drink, and a lot of times at night, our good friends know that the adult lounge is open, and so they'll text us and say, hey, is the adult lounge open? And they'll come over, and it's kind of an open bar policy. It's a great way for, after dinner, our good friends to come over and just, spend time together. So like I said, it was really dark and paneled, and so we chose a Fine Paints of Europe color and lacquered it. And this process took, I want to say it took 3 weeks of sanding. It's just a very intensive process. But I'm so glad we did it because the color turned out so beautiful. It doesn't even have a name. It was a color that I just picked out of a chart of about 1,000 different little chips. But it felt like the right blue to me, and it felt soothing, and but still bold. And so we lacquered the room, and I actually love bookshelves. I know a lot of people are intimidated by them, but because I'm such a hoarder of antique accessories, I need them. And so the bookshelves in here are so great because I have my collections displayed. And so, for example, I collect antique tortoiseshell, and so I'm able to kind of group it in the shelves to show it off. Lacquerware is another thing I collect, and you'll see it sort of dispersed throughout the shelves. And family pictures. Bookshelves are such a great place to display family photos, and so I love having them. So like the other room, this was a fireplace that needed to be redone. And the art in here is actually one of my other favorite artists in Dallas. Her name is Erica Huddleston. And she does also plein air painting, but did this landscape in the creek bed by our old home. So it does sort of remind me a little bit of where we used to live. But again, I just think the colors are so pretty, and I'm always drawn to any sort of art depicting nature. So that's in here in lieu of a TV, which my teenage sons were not so sure about, but now they understand that you can actually have a conversation and you don't have to be watching a TV at all times, because they will come in here and talk to us. The other piece of art in here, my husband and I are big lovers of South Carolina and hope one day to move there part-time. But this is an artist named Thomas Hager, and he does photographs. And this was a photograph he had done of a marsh. And we just had to have it because it reminded us so much of Kiowa, which is our favorite place to go in South Carolina. And I like mixing different kinds of art. I like that this is a photograph, and I like an oil painting, so everything isn't the same. So this is the room my husband hangs out in the most. And so, and like I said, I'm a boy mom with 2 teenage boys, so I wanted this room to feel more masculine. And to do that, I chose a wool plaid for the sofa. And I think that's very lounge appropriate, and also just obviously is more masculine. The sisal rug on the floor, we also bound in leather to give another bit of a masculine touch. I always love a natural fiber rug, but then to play with the binding, whether it be with a color or leather or special trim, just to kind of dress it up a little bit. And again, I love mixing traditional and contemporary. So I think this chair is a really fun example of doing that. I bought this chair at an antique store. It was covered in some sort of terrible silk. And I loved how the Pierre Frey geometric popped against it. I love the juxtaposition of the really old chippy frame that's more formal, and then this funky geometric fabric on it. So the coffee table in here is sort of an interesting story. I'm a big fan of liveauctioneers.com for finding special things, and I was searching for a Jansen mid-century coffee table because I like the brass details and the little finials that they are kind of known for, and the scale of it is usually small, which I needed in here. So I was able to buy this coffee table at auction for $150, but it came with a glass top, and I just felt like the glass in here just we needed a pop of color. So back to my signature chartreuse, I found this chartreuse hide and had the tabletops covered in the leather, which again kind of gives a little bit more of a masculine feel in here, but also adds a funky, fun, unexpected twist. Another auction find that lives in this room are these pair of mid-century black stools. They've gone with us from house to house, have sat in front of fireplaces, and I don't think I'll ever get rid of them. And I love the classic Le Tigre velvet from Scalamandre. So I had them recovered in that. I think this is like every house needs a little bit of Scalamandre velvet. And this is something that goes in every single room. It's a neutral. And so for this house, they fit perfectly in the windows. And then on Saturday night, if we're making ranch waters and our friends give us a call, we'll just pull them up in the group seating area and everybody has a place to sit. So we have lots of, alcohol out, but our main thing that we usually drink is tequila. So my husband has a lot of different tequilas that he likes to try. And I love these. These are Italian cordless lamps. They are, chargeable. And I like them in here because they kind of give it a little bit of a mood. I sell these at my booth at Antique Row. But we also move these outside sometimes if we're having a dinner party on the table. They're just great little move around spots of lights. And I think the brass gives them like a really kind of glamorous feel. Cranberry is sort of a color that I like to accent in this, in this space and also in my house. So these are just some Matuk. They were gifted to me by a vendor here we love, but I used an antique English toast server, which you see a lot at antique shows, and just folded the napkins as a, to keep them out so that they look pretty. The matchbooks, we try and just pick one up when we're on a trip, when we go out to eat at any of our Dallas favorite restaurants. One day I would love to do something a little bit more special with them, but for right now, we're just kind of keeping them on our counter. And it just is kind of a fun reminder of restaurants we've been to that we loved or trips we've taken. And I always think the bar is an appropriate place to show a matchbook collection. Another find from one of my antiques trips is this chandelier that we have in here. It is a mid-century Jansen chandelier. I bought it from one of my favorite dealers in Atlanta, Antonio Cresputz. He's with Loft Antiques. And I bought this, I didn't even know if I was gonna keep it or sell it, but I loved it because I loved the sort of hammered two metals that kind of are mixed together. I loved the metal shade and just the size of it. And so it was in our bar back at our last house, and then when we were moving in here, I thought it would be perfect in here as well. And I just really encourage our clients to look for lighting that's found and not just order from, the big resources that everybody can order from, because then you can have something that nobody else has. Okay. Let's go take a look at the powder room. So this is our powder room. I live in a house full of boys, so I kind of wanted a pink powder room, and I loved this berry wallpaper as a jumping off point. And so we totally covered the room, obviously, in the berry wallpaper. This was a brand new custom made vanity. The original house had a really sort of heavy French looking chest as the vanity, and it didn't really work, obviously, with our scheme. And so I had my cabinet maker make something a little simple and more clean, but then I used my brass manufacturer to come in here and sort of jazz it up. So he did the brass edging detail you see, and then I also had him custom make these brass rosette hardware that I took from a mid-century cabinet that I had liked at an antique show. I just took a picture of the hardware that came on the cabinet and had him recreate it for the vanity. So for the lighting, I wanted to, again, do something a little bit more fun and modern. And so these are some fun sconces from Urban Electric. And I know it's probably kind of hard to see, but we did a custom pink backplate and shade, and it kind of pulls in the color of the wallpaper and gives it a little bit more of a fun touch in here. The linens are Leontine linens, the hand towels. I'm a big fan of Leontine in New Orleans, and I sent them a little clipping of the wallpaper, and they were able to come up with a color scheme and a monogram that worked really well for our hand towels. And I do not like a towel ring in a powder bath. It's too casual. So we selected a tabletop brass holder for the towels, and it just is a little dressier, feels a little bit more special. And then for the art, I think art needs to happen in the bathroom too. I don't think that these walls should be overlooked. And again, I like layering art on top of wallpaper. So I purchased this mid-century oil in Atlanta, and I think it just is fun and different and unexpected in here. So the mirror is actually something I had from our last house. It's made from a company called Vaughn, and I had it in our last house over a chest, and I needed a mirror in the powder bath here, and I wanted something kind of creamy white, and the size was perfect, so we just repurposed it in the powder bath. But I like using decorative mirrors in a powder bath and antique mirrors in a powder bath to do something a little more special and dressy in the space. All right, let's head to the family room. So this is our family room. Really in here, we didn't have to change a lot during the remodel. The beams were here, and the exposed brick wall was here, but we did choose to paint it because it was red. But I love exposed brick in a house. I think it really warms up a space. And that was really my goal in creating this room, is I wanted our family room to feel warm, and like on a cold winter's night, it was like a place you wanted to be. And so the sofas and the chairs have had a lot of wear. I'm probably going to recover them soon, just because I'm addicted to doing that. But Rory will get on the sofas. I mean, he will often sleep right here, despite the fact that he has a custom-made bed. But he will sleep on the sofas, and I don't really shoo him off anymore because these are perennials fabrics, and so it's indoor, outdoor. If he gets mud on him, I can just kind of get a little Dawn soap and some warm water and wash it off. And I really think that's how you should be in your family room. I think your family room needs to be a place you don't have to worry about things. So we use a lot of indoor-outdoor fabrics when we're designing a family room. So the sofas get a lot of wear with the dog. The chairs are actually a printed Jasper fabric that I love. And they're not indoor-outdoor, but because of the print, it seems to sort of hide the daily wear, and they've held up really great. The one thing I'd love to sort of show you guys that I haven't yet is that one of the things that I think is most special about this house that we did not actually put in, but are the wide plank floors. They are reclaimed from a church in England from the 1800s. And so I think that those are so beautiful. They may not be something that if I were building a house I would have picked, but adding to like the warmth factor and the homey factor that I was talking about wanting to achieve in this space, I think that the hardwoods did it. So we wouldn't dream of ever ripping them out. And I think it's so fun to just think about like who used to walk on these. And they've seen a lot of weddings and baptisms and funerals over the years, and have been in, a sacred space, and now they're in our home. So I think it adds a lot of charm and character to our house. The Louis Philippe chests, so I have purchased a lot of these over the years. These are sort of I don't want to call them basic, but your most clean line, readily available antique chests. They're French and usually made out of walnut or mahogany, but I loved doing a pair of these on either side of the fireplace. There actually were built-ins into this brick when we bought the house, and that was sort of a fight my husband and I had. He kind of wanted to keep them and I did not. And I won that battle, and I'm glad I did, because I think it just updates the space to have a really beautiful chest instead and a mirror to reflect the light. The lamps are pottery lamps from a vendor I love named Stephen Gerold, and they're made on his potter's wheel. I love the color, and again, I love chartreuse, so these are Fermoy custom shades that I thought just, it would have been really easy to just put a white shade on these lamps, but this color combo just makes me happy, and threads, again, that chartreuse that I love so much throughout our house. I also want my house to feel personal and to do little touches throughout it that are unexpected. And this is a trip my husband and I went on with our boys last spring break, where we went on a boat and sailed the Virgin Islands, just the four of us. And the captain on the boat, when we disembarked, gave us these collection of little Polaroids he had taken of our family, just like playing games and snorkeling. And I didn't want to just put them away in a drawer or in a book. I wanted to keep them out for us to just look at and remember. And so they live in this little bowl on my chest. We did update the fireplace with a new cast stone surround. This fireplace is pretty much on, if it is below 65 degrees in Dallas. I love to have a fire on. It's gas logs, which I know a lot of people like a wood burning fireplace, but I just don't like the mess of it. And so I love this fireplace because I can just turn it on if it's even remotely cold outside, and even if it's not for heat purposes, it just makes the house feel more homey. So it's on all the time. So this is a big wall right here, and it took me a while to figure out what I wanted to do with it. And I went to the Southern Living show house maybe 5 years ago, and there was an artist named Catherine Booker Jones that I loved her work. And I think what I was drawn to was the contrast of the old and new. And so she takes these old antique ledgers and does a geometric painting on them. And I like that contrast, and I love that tension in the space. And so I collected a series of them and had them framed, and I feel like they really do what needs to be done in this room, which is to add something a little bit more contemporary, but that has a story. Well, I've had them at two different homes, actually. I mean, I've kept these. They were in my dining room at my old house. And I think if you buy art that you really love and you love the story behind it, you'll have it forever. So you may have noticed these throughout my house, but these are Forbes and Lomax brass switch plates. And I decided to put them in all the main living rooms downstairs when we did our remodel. It's kind of a little piece of unexpected jewelry for your house. And it's real easy to just have your electrician just put in a regular old switch plate, but there's something about these that just elevates the space, and I'm really glad it was something I chose to do when we did the remodel. So this is Rory. He is our English setter. He has been with us for about 8 years now, and he is like the fifth member of our family. He's the best dog in the world. He gets mistaken a lot of times for a long-haired Dalmatian, but he's an English setter, and you don't see that breed very much anymore, but they're awesome dogs. They're super calm. They're known as the Jerry Garcia of the sporting breeds, which is one of the reasons why we chose him, because life is busy with two boys and we didn't want a crazy wild dog. And he's been just like another child in our family. So I had the coffee table custom made for the space. There is a workshop in New Orleans on Magazine Street, and the lady's name is Kathy Slater. And she has a collection of tables, and she can do anything custom, and glass or limestone, different sizes, different finishes of iron. And I wanted to introduce a little bit of iron in here, and I didn't want to have any material that was like too precious, because my boys are constantly putting their feet on the coffee table. And so I called Kathy and asked her if she could help me design and make this coffee table for our space. And it's been great. I think it's got the neutral creamy limestone and the iron, which is basically indestructible. So that's been a really good addition to our home. I love everything she makes, and we use her line a lot in our designs. This little table is an interesting story. So again, like everything's traditional with the chest and a lot of the pieces in here, but I wanted something a little bit more fun and unexpected. So I worked with my brass workshop to design this custom table, and just kind of drew it up, and then picked a lacquer color for the top for like a fun, unexpected pop. And I like it. I think it gives the room something unexpected, which I think that tension is like I've said, is so important in design to make an interesting house. And so we love it. I mean, I don't know that we ever put anything on it, but it looks cute. And then this console table, this again was a very big wall. I had the painting. It was one of the first paintings I bought after we got married, and this artist is Renda Saprioto out of New Orleans. And it was in our original first house after we got married, and I think I was just drawn to it at the time because of the colors and probably the chartreuse. But I needed something to kind of anchor it on this wall, and so I had this custom grass cloth console built. And what I love about it is again, like back to the bookshelves in the adult lounge, like I have stuff, I collect a lot, so I wanted to have surfaces to display those collections. So this does it really well, and is like a good home for those things. And one of the things I display in here is my mid-century collection of Italian Batossi pottery. So these, I have several pieces of them, but this was a mid-century Italian pottery house that was kind of known for this ombre glaze and these sort of whimsical carvings in the clay. And I just kind of snap these up whenever I see them. Sometimes I see them at antique shows, sometimes I see them on Etsy, but I love the color of them, and I think they look really fun, kind of popped in groupings in this console. Now I'll take you over to our kitchen. So the kitchen got just a cosmetic remodel when we moved into the house. The cabinets were really quality, and even though they had been here, they had this sort of pickled green glaze on them that wasn't going to work. My husband really didn't want to redo them. They were so solid, and so we just decided to paint them, which I think was definitely the right decision. So what we did in here was we painted all the cabinetry. We did a new backsplash. I wanted a little subtle color, but this is this beautiful watercolor tile by Pratt & Larson that I think just kind of echoes the ground of my Gracie paper, which is in the dining room next door. And we did new marble on the countertops. And I know I have clients that are very afraid of marble, but I don't know if it's just because I'm an antique dealer, but I love patina, and none of that bothers me, and I don't think there's any replacing the beauty of a marble. And so I decided to just do marble, and we don't worry about it, and I haven't looked back. The appliances were all the same. We didn't touch any of that. But I did do new lighting. So this is an Urban Electric linear sort of pendant that I had, and I think it gives it a little bit more of a fun look in here against the really traditional kitchen. And we cook a lot. So, I mean, my husband and I, we probably cook 3 or 4 meals a week at home, dinners a week at home. And even though our boys are, going from one sport to the next, or, not all as home as much as they used to be, we make a real effort to eat at least 3 dinners together a week. And so what I loved about this kitchen was that it had space over here amongst these windows for a breakfast table. And so this is where we eat all of our meals. I mean, we have dinner, lunch, breakfast, always in this space. And I love it because it looks out on the backyard and it gets a lot of light, and it's connected to the kitchen, so it just feels really homey. This breakfast table I purchased from the Whimsy shop, which was an antique shop that's no more in Dallas, probably in the early 2000s. It was one of the first things I bought after we got married. And it's a farm table, and I love it. It's, again, been around for 200, almost 200 years, and it's gorgeous wood, and you can still see the spot here on the top where the farmer probably made a repair and a patch. So it has a lot of history to it, and I, now it has a lot of history, and has hosted a lot of conversations amongst my husband and our boys. The chairs are Hollywood at home. I loved this natural feel in here, and had the custom cushions made. And the lantern is Urban Electric as well. It was just kind of a nice complement to the linear pendant, and I thought it was fun. It kind of reminded me a little bit of Palm Beach. So this is another little fun thing we did during our remodel. There was not a cabinet over here, and so it felt really imbalanced against this window. And so we did add now that I'm thinking back, we did have the uppers, but we had no lowers. And so I decided that we needed to have some lowers here because it just felt really imbalanced. So we did add this, and then Rory, who, like I said, is a huge part of our household, needed a space for his water and food bowl. So this is, kind of a fun thing that we did. We just had the marble fabricator cut out holes for his dog bowls. In retrospect, I wish I'd given Rory a pot filler, but I did not, to fill his water bowl. But this is where he eats, and it kind of solves the problem of, like, where do you put the dog bowl? So I purchased both of the rugs in here from my friend Brittany Crow, who has a company called The Rug Girl on Instagram. And she's amazing to work with. And so one of the first things we did was we picked out this runner for my kitchen. I know people are afraid sometimes of having like an antique or a Turkish rug in their kitchen because of, obviously I'm like making spaghetti sauce here, and I've dripped and splattered many times marinara on this rug. and it literally will come up with just some warm water and a blot. And so I actually think they're like the most wonderful workhorses for a kitchen. Because of the pattern too, it hides a lot of things. And it gives your kitchen color and adds to the homey factor that you want to have your kitchen feel like. And I also went to Brittany for our breakfast room rug, which I didn't want to have a Turkish rug in here just because I didn't want to fight with the proximity of the one behind my island. So she was able to do this flat weave for me. It's actually, in this bright sun is like lightened up a little bit with time, but it's a really soft peach and wool. And so wool is a great fiber to have in any sort of high traffic area because it's so easy to clean and so wears so well. So again, like we've had a couple of stains on this, but it just comes right up with warm water and a blot. So the counter, like we don't eat a lot at the counter. I will often have my laptop up here, and this is where I'll work when I'm at home. But we usually are eating at our table. But I love, I obviously we needed to have counter seating, and so I had these custom made. I didn't want to have a painted finish because I wanted them to stand out from the painted finish of the island, but I liked the warmth of this cerused oak and a little touch of brass. And when my boys were younger, I probably would have vinyl coated this fabric because of the stains. But now that they're 16 and above, I kind of feel like they shouldn't be spilling all the time. So this is a Nemeseme print that I really love. And again, it just sort of brought in some of that warmer cranberry color that I love so much, and a little bit of the seafoamy green that is in the kitchen backsplash. So before we take a look at my bedroom, let's go check out outside. So this is our backyard, and it was, when we came to look at the house before purchasing it, it was probably one of the biggest selling points for us, just because the house where we were living at the time was on a tiny lot, and we didn't even have a tree, and literally could look out of our master bedroom window and see our neighbor's laundry detergent. So this being on a corner and then having so much beautiful mature landscape was really appealing to us. We spend a lot of time out here when it's not 100 degrees, and so one thing that was important to us was having some screens that would come down, because Dallas is known for its terrible mosquitoes in the summer, and for some reason they love me. So these columns were originally wood arched sort of support structures, and they felt too rustic for the house, and also we couldn't house the drop-down screens in them. So we had them redone with brick, painted to match the rest of the house, and then these are the channels that the screens will come down. So it's great when it's so hot here and the mosquitoes are out, we can still sit out here and enjoy the patio. The furniture is something that I had wanted ever since I started in the design business, and would go into the showroom that had this line. And when we bought this house, I just decided to splurge on it. So I love it. This sofa is so deep. I actually took a nap out here yesterday, and Rory also loves to get out here and take a nap. And then these two chairs, my husband and I live out here in the fall and winter and spring, and we love this little fireplace because we've never had a fireplace outside before. So we love to light it and just take these chairs and turn them towards each other, and that's how we unwind after a long work day. Out here, we did put in the pool. We had never had a pool before, and we thought that our teenage boys would love having a pool. And the backyard was really positioned in a way that it was easy to put in a pool. There was a bunch of just green space over there. So we did put in the pool when we moved in, but this patio out here where the dining area was there. We didn't change the stone. The hydrangeas were here already planted and thriving, as was all of the landscape. So it was really easy to just kind of move in and not do anything out here except do the pool. The furniture is kind of a mix of the formations that I have out here and then Restoration Hardware. I love their wash teak. And so the table is the Restoration Hardware wash teak, as are the chaise lounges. And then I had to have one of those fun Santa Barbara Umbrella Company umbrellas in my favorite peach. out here. And so that's out in the summer and needed in the 100-degree heat. But we spend a lot of time out here making frozen palomas, cooking out, hanging out with friends. Okay, let's head back inside and I'll show you my bedroom. So this is our bedroom, and I really need to recharge in my bedroom after like a busy day of work. Sometimes we'll get in bed extra early and watch TV or read. And so I wanted my bedroom to feel really restful and peaceful. And so the very first thing I started with in here was this textile from Penny Morrison that I love called the Vase. And it just had some really soft blues, and I knew I wanted to use this fabric in the room as a focal point. And so I decided to do it in the drapery. And it's great. We have it on traversing hardware. These are French doors that go out to an upstairs patio, and I can just, like a hotel, just kind of close it off at night and open it up in the morning. So it works really well, and I have never regretted splurging on a drapery in here. That was something I love. The bed we had custom made. I used an outdoor leather. It's actually a real leather, but it's been coated with an outdoor protection just for durability. And we just had our local workroom make it here in Dallas. Same with the nightstands. This was made by a local workroom here in Dallas. I just sort of designed some of the details, like the little bit of cerused oak and the glass knobs, just to sort of have it be a little more faint. I don't know if you'd call it more formal, but the cerused oak gives it a little touch of casual. And then the bedding is Leontine linens out of New Orleans. And this is my second set of bedding from Leontine. And I just think it is such worth the splurge. They have the most beautiful embroidery, the most kind of bespoke monograms. And, I have some clients that are afraid of an all white bed, but I have had stains on this before, and they come right out with just a little wash in the washing machine. You don't even have to send them to the dry cleaners. So it's worked out really well, and I also think that they're just linens that you have forever. I'm still kind of playing with this wall. I have this art here right now, and I like it, and I think it's fun. I'm kind of on the hunt right now for an antique screen to go on this wall, which I haven't found the right one yet, but for now, I have these fun floral collages. The artist is an artist out of Virginia, and she watercolors her own paper and then cuts out the flowers in the vases. So I think they're really interesting and fun. And I mean, if I don't keep them here, I'll find another place for them, I'm sure, in my house. So I like breaking up sheetrock in a house. So one of the things I like to do and wanted to do in my master was put some sort of textile on the wall. And this is a Philip Jeffries textiles called Handera cloth. And it's not a grass cloth, but it's actually like a cotton and has a little bit of the natural fibers running through it. But I do think if you can put a texture on your walls in your bedroom, it can make the space feel cozier, and which is what you want to do in a bedroom. You want it to feel cozy and serene. And the light blue kind of background of this paper was really suitable with the drapery fabric. So these are Stephen Gerold, which I have the teal ones downstairs. So these are sort of his very soft gray glaze that we did for our master bedroom. And I like them because, again, I really wanted the palette in here to be really soft and serene. The shades are custom. There's a shop here in Dallas called The Lamp Shop that we have a lot of our shades made at. And this is just an open box pleat shade with a little bit of trim. And it's kind of one of those, couture details in a home that, people sometimes overlook the lampshade. But I think the lampshade is one of the most important elements of a lamp, if not the most important element. So my advice to clients always is to think above your lampshade. Like, don't just keep the lampshade that came free with your lamp. So one of the reasons that we bought this house also was that I was just totally charmed by the sitting area off the master. And we bought this house. When we bought it, the sitting area was like a very dark wood. It had really dark paneling. It had this mantle surround was there, but not the marble. So what we did was we decided that we needed to lighten it up. And I have a wonderful specialty painter here in Dallas that I work with. So she spent a couple of weeks in this space, lime washing, painting this room. There's a company in Houston called Chateau Domaine, and they have their own product. And so she spent some time in here applying that to the walls, and it gives it a really subtle striation. So it's not just a flat paint, but it gives it a little bit of more of an old world feel. And I think it has just totally changed the room. This is one of my most used spaces in our home. I opted to do a pair of chaise lounges here, which maybe is a little unexpected, but my husband and I love to come in here and watch TV before we go to bed and have a glass of wine. And I also love to come in here in the morning and have a little quiet time before I start my day. So it's been a really positive, serene spot for us in the house. And it's so small, and so it feels incredibly intimate. The painting is actually so special to me. It is commissioned by an artist named Susie Pryor out of Atlanta. And I wanted a portrait of my boys, but I didn't want a real formal seated portrait of them. I wanted something a little more casual, a little more abstract. And Susie, I had saved a clipping of hers, of her art that I'd seen in Veranda, maybe in the early 2000s. And I reached out to her and sent her a photograph of my boys on the banks of a river that we used to stay at in Colorado in the summer. And she created this portrait of them, and it's probably one of my most prized possessions. So the aspect of this house that my husband was most excited about was that he is an avid hunter and fisherman. And when we bought this house, there was already some great storage behind here. And of course I wanted to put books and games and things like that, but I lost that battle. He has now turned this into his custom fly fishing cabinet. So he loves it. He comes in here and works in here, and they fish all the time. So I'm actually fine with it. It stays behind closed doors, so it doesn't bother me too much. To me, home is a place where you can be completely yourself. It's a place where you can unplug and you can recharge. And I think it's so important to be surrounded by family and friends, obviously, in your home, but also just by things that you love that sort of remind you of special times in your life. Thanks, Homeworthy. It's been so fun being with you today. Come back and see us soon.
Thanks for watching. Be sure to go to homeworthy.com for exclusive content, shopping guides, and so much more.